Welcome to the party. I'm Sam Ekstrom of Locked On Sports Minnesota. Who are the most overrated and underrated Vikings on the roster?
I'm Luke Braun of Locked On Vikings, just now learning what basket interference is.
Hi, this is Arif Hasan with the Wide Left Substack. Have learned a lot about basketball in the past week, and Cameron Brink is obviously Rookie of the Year, right? That's not close.
Supposedly we have a new open. Let's try it.
Locked On Sports Minnesota podcast. It's endless Minnesota Vikings talk with the diverse voices of your local experts. It's time for the Minnesota Football Party. It's your guys hanging out talking next level Vikings football. So join in with Arif Hasan, Locked On Vikings Luke Braun, Superior Sports Talks Luke Inman, and Vikings insider Sam Ekstrom, plus the biggest names in Minnesota football for the Minnesota Football Party. And it starts now.
It was subtle, but that was a new open. Welcome to the Minnesota Football Party. I'm Sam Ekstrom. That's Arif Hasan. That's Luke Braun. We are live with you on a Thursday morning. Thank you for watching us at Locked On Sports Minnesota. If you're not already subscribed, subscribe so then you get notified when we go live on Mondays and Thursdays and all the other great shows that we have here at Locked On Sports Minnesota. Our audio is also available on the Locked On Vikings podcast feed wherever you find your podcasts, the SiriusXM app, Amazon Fire, Roku, all of our partners, lots of ways to watch and listen. Today's show is brought to you by Gametime. Download the Gametime app, create an account, use code LOCKEDONNFL for $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply. Plenty to discuss today. The Vikings have engaged in OTAs. I believe it was an indoor session open to reporters. Indoor sessions are usually the worst, but we have some takeaways from OTAs. Overrated and underrated Vikings on the roster. We'll dive into that, try to stir the pot. We'll address the Bill Barnwell rumor or speculation that Adori Jackson would fit on the Vikings, and Ron Johnson joins for his Thursday visit as well. But Arif Hasan, I am not at OTAs this year. You are not at OTAs this year. Luke Braun is not at OTAs this year. So we are going to recklessly speculate about OTAs.
Fantastic.
And
excellent,
we really
excellent work for all of us.
I did talk to Alec Lewis on today's Locked On Vikings, so I at least can relay what he told me. And
I think that, and this is a genuine endorsement for the fans. If you want detailed, good OTA reports of what's happening behind closed doors, Will Raggett's for SI Fan Nation. I'm not sure who owns SI these days, but Will Raggett's produces the best content on these practices.
I believe Arena Group still owns them. The question is who licenses them. It's a very complicated and stupid subject.
It is. And then you've got Bring Me the News that's involved too. They pick up the content and they're a partner. So it's somewhere, but it's good. I promise you. And he wrote a very good report on the Vikings Open OTA on a rainy day a couple days ago. I sent you guys the link. We've all read the story. Anything that stood out to you, Arif Hasan, from OTA number one?
I guess the fact that Shaq Griffin was starting in three cornerback sets, we knew that Blake Brandel was going to be the starting left guard. The fact that he's unopposed as a starting left guard, okay. But I think that Shaq Griffin starting opposite to Caleb Evans with Byron Murphy on the inside is interesting, right? I think that, one would think that there might be a little bit more in terms of competition with Andrew Booth there, or maybe Kyrie Jackson. The fact that Maggie Blackman isn't getting a ton of run with first team nickel is not surprising, but certainly notable. So I'd go there.
Yeah, I mean, we'll get into the Adori Jackson thing. I've not been poo-pooing the Shaq Griffin the way that Luke Braun has, the way that you are a little bit right now, Arif. I think that Shaq Griffin was brought in to be a starter. I don't think there's any doubt in my mind that that's a...
They could have paid him more if that was the case then, huh?
The teams find starters at value all the time. Blake Brandel, unopposed.
Yeah, starters, but good one.
Jeff says in the comments, Kyrie Jackson is a baller. I agree. I think Kyrie Jackson entering his second year would be a great starter, starting.
Yeah, he'll only be
position.
27 then.
I think that's a great trajectory for him, but you got to have someone to start this year.
I don't have an issue with Shaq Griffin earning a starting job or with the signing at all. I'm just pessimistic about, what his upside is because it's been 3 years since he's actually played high quality football.
It seems like he's kind of just the new Joejuan Williams. Joejuan Williams got first team reps in OTAs last year.
They're not even close, though. From a resume standpoint, I don't think they're even close. No way.
I
guy
guess,
that used to start, but kind of shouldn't anymore. Which one am I talking about?
Well, the one guy that used to start made a Pro Bowl and almost made another one and should have made two. But the other guy that used to start shouldn't have made any Pro Bowls and didn't. So I guess that's the resume difference. The problem is the Pro Bowl was 2019, right? It's been a bit, Sam. He got benched twice. I don't have an issue with him winning the job. I just want to temper expectations.
Yeah, he holds the position of being the guy you have to beat to play, which I think is healthy. But I think if nobody actually can do that, then it ends up being Bashaud Breeland, CB1.
Joejuan Williams came to Minnesota with less than 600 career snaps and never more than 300 in a season. Shaq Griffin, for any warts he might have, he's played over 1,000 snaps twice. He's played over 800 snaps 5 times. They're not comparable.
That's for Luke to respond because he's the one that made the comparison. I'm fine with Luke.
Yeah, no, I already gave up on the comparison. That's okay.
Okay, right.
Yeah.
Okay. But Dalton Risner, I feel has he's played 1,000 snaps a couple of times, 800 snaps a couple of times. Couldn't sign for a while, ends up signing. Shaq Griffin was a fourth wave free agent. It took him a bit to sign. I don't know. He didn't have a huge market. He got cut by Houston after Derek Stingley got healthy. We've rehashed his history here before. I just feel like there's a pretty reasonable chance that Kyrie Jackson or Andrew Booth could beat him out for the starting job. And so I just don't want to get too caught up in Shaq Griffin being the guy. I think that they're trying to figure things out. And I wouldn't be surprised if I know that they made a very specific comment about how they wanted more outside corners, specifically so that Byron Murphy could kick inside on nickel downs because they really like what he does as a nickel corner. But if they can't manage that, if they can't make that happen, I wouldn't be shocked if we're at a situation where Byron Murphy is playing on the outside and Mickey Blackman is the nickel. That wouldn't surprise me at all.
Primarily in the Will Raggett's report on the OTA was about sort of the reps of JJ McCarthy. And I want to tell a story about Tiger Woods and Tiger Woods' father to preface this. Tiger Woods' dad said to 5-year-old Tiger, "All right, son, there are 5 tee boxes on this course. I could put you at the forward tees. You could play the course at 5,000 yards, or I could put you at the tips, and we could play the 7,500-yard course. And it is going to suck. You are not going to be good. It's going to take you 10 shots to get to the hole, but you are going to start here at the most difficult tee box, and then you are going to work at it until you kind of play your way into that." So with that in mind, at what point would you be annoyed if the Vikings are still sticking JJ McCarthy with the 3rd or 4th team as he was at OTAs? I'm not annoyed yet, but would there be a point at which you say, okay, just put him in the role, at least put him with the 2s, with people that are competent around him, so that he can kind of, even if it's fast for him, so that he can figure it out and kind of play his way into that? Would you be annoyed at some point if he remains with? I
think if it cuts into if you see Nick Mullins playing 2 quarters of a preseason game and JJ McCarthy playing 1, I think I'd be annoyed at that. If it affects the snap counts, but otherwise, I don't think that the quality of names that he is throwing to it will have a lot of impact on what he's working on right now, which is very technical, footwork stuff. And you just kind of hope the ball is accurate.
Yeah, so like the two things I wanted to comment on with regards to that comparison is I don't know that fully plays out because the more difficult tee, I don't play golf, is objectively just more difficult in every respect. Whereas playing on the third team has challenges and opportunities because you're playing against people who are not going to react as quickly, who don't have as much speed, just don't play the game as well. And so when you like thread a needle and get the ball to your receiver, yeah, that receiver may drop it. Maybe he's not a highest quality of a receiver, but the cornerback might not be able to get to it either, right? Like it's not a one-to-one comparison. And I think the other thing is I have like no idea about this story about Tiger Woods. But if his dad did that while his mechanics were broken, that would probably have been a very bad idea. And one of the things that McCarthy is working on are his mechanics, right? And so you don't want him to begin rushing his process, having to play faster in a world where you haven't solidified what those mechanics are. And as a reminder, people are pretty excited about what Jordan Love's prospects are. I wrote about that a little bit at the Wide Left Substack, but he was the third string quarterback his rookie year the entire time behind like Tim Boyle, I think, which, we know how good Tim Boyle is.
Do you get excited about the reports on McCarthy's appearance of velocity with his arm? Does arm strength, how much does that matter to you? Anyone?
We knew, right? Like if you were like, whoa, his arm is strong, you didn't pay attention, which
Didn't
is
do your
fine. You
homework.
don't have to, but welcome.
It's arm strength definitely matters, right? There's no question about that. It's just really a question of how you generate it and what it buys you, right? Because there's a difference between arm strength that's crafted from like excellent mechanics, right, and
Mhm.
arm strength that is part of just essentially your upper body, ability to torque and create strength. And the reason that matters is that kind of arm strength gets you out of trouble when your mechanics aren't working, when the pocket isn't set, when you're throwing out of pressure and stuff like that. Like different types of arm strength. And I don't. So it was difficult because McCarthy is in a class with quarterbacks that do have like some pretty strong arms, and so it got kind of overshadowed what he was able to do. But I don't know that his arm strength is as universally strong through all of these platforms in the way that when we talk about like these really high quality arm strength guys is the same, right? But that's not that important to me. The fact that that's the thing that we're focusing on is funny, but there's not much else that you can do in OTAs other than like watch quarterbacks sling it and then just say, "Hey, that one had pop." Nah, that one didn't. Like, okay, it's fun, and the people that have been watching and have been commenting on the arm strength have seen a lot of quarterbacks throw for the Vikings, including those that are purported to have some pretty strong arms, like Jaren Hall, right? And this feels different to them, which is meaningful.
I don't know if Hall was ballyhooed for his arm strength necessarily, but
It's just deep accuracy, which is an
Sure,
adjacent but different thing.
yeah, Jaren Hall cannot be having that much fun in OTAs. He's got to slog through this. Maybe
He's
not
QB4
even
right now.
Yeah.
Right. Yeah.
Even if there's a Nick Mullins trade, and he becomes QB3, yay, great, hooray. Jaren Hall is already like Jaren Hall basically had one shot. Jaren Hall had a couple games
opportunity.
No.
Once in a lifetime.
Mom's spaghetti.
No.
On the number 15 jersey in purple. Ron Johnson joins shortly. And quick word with overrated, underrated Vikings coming up on the Minnesota Football Party. We are presented by Yahoo Finance today. And I know that everybody wants to see the Yahoo Finance logo, and it's gone. Well, this is the magic. I got it. This
Fantastic.
is the magic of live podcasting. There it is. There's the visual.
Hey.
Yahoo Finance is a fantastic tool for the new investor or the experienced investor. Wouldn't it be great if you could see all of your investment retirement accounts in one place? You can with the consolidated Yahoo Finance view. When it comes to your financial future, you think you've done it all. You've saved, researched, invested, but you need to take those investments to the next level. And you do what every great financial mind does. You use Yahoo Finance because for more than 25 years, Yahoo Finance has been the brand behind all great investors, number one finance destination. They give you a holistic look at the financial news cycle, breaking news, editorial perspectives, analyst ratings, independent research, customizable charts, and so much more. It's myriad of resources at your fingertips. Securely link your brokerage accounts for a unified view of your wealth, including 401k and other investments. 90 million users each month trust Yahoo Finance, yahoofinance.com. For comprehensive financial news and analysis, visit the brand behind every great investor, yahoofinance.com, the number one financial destination, yahoofinance.com, yahoofinance.com. All right, as we await our Thursday appearance from Ron Johnson, overrated and underrated Vikings guys. We've got 91 on the roster now, so there's quite a few to choose from.
Yeah.
Let's start underrated. I look at the top of the roster, and I kind of I see number 0, Ivan Pace, and that is, I think, actually a very good candidate.
That's crazy. I was going to put him on the overrated list. That rules.
What?
Oh, let's go.
I like the take. I like the provocative nature of it, but you got to explain, because I think Ivan Pace is probably more known within Viking circles. I don't know if he's known within league circles. I don't know how he can be overrated. It certainly
depends on who is doing the rating. That's fair, right? So I would argue that there is a somewhat reasonable chance that he is appropriately or even underrated by national media, right? I will say that he did grab a fair amount of attention, but the attention, came from people who love doing deep dives and are very invested in the guy was 4th or 5th in defensive rookie of the year voting or something like that, maybe even 3rd. Getting invested in that kind of player, might occupy a particular niche, but that's not as if a bunch of national media knew who he was. So that might be fair enough. But the reason I call him overrated is I think by Vikings fans, he is overrated. I think he's a good player. And I hope, he gets a great second contract when that comes up. I am worried because he is fairly one-dimensional as a player. He's very good at that one dimension, but it only gets you so far. There's only so many things that you can do, and the Vikings needed to have a very good all-around linebacker next to him. Luckily, they had that in Jordan Hicks, and they hope to have that with Blake Cashman. But I just think that when you're asked to do basically the one here's actually a really good example. Frankie Louvu didn't get as good of a contract as Blake Cashman, even though Frankie Louvu is better at his job than Blake Cashman is at his. That's because Cashman can do more. Frankie Louvu, like Ivan Pace, is a blitzing linebacker that primarily gets his value from pass rushing. It's a very good thing to be able to do, but the less you can do, the less valuable you are. And I don't know that Pace is as good at things like run defense, avoiding blockers, taking on blockers when necessary, when the scheme demands it, running down the field in coverage and stuff like that. I think he's very good at what he's asked to do. I just think that what he's asked to do is fairly narrow. So I think that Vikings fans could very easily overrate him. What was his PFF grade? 90.3? That's because they asked him to do the stuff he was good at.
It was not 90.3. It was 77, but it was the number 2 rookie linebacker, number 17 linebacker in football. Let's see if Ron Johnson rips you for this take. He's with us now at 3 Ron Johnson, host of the Ron Johnson Show. A lot of Vikings and Wolves coverage with Ron Johnson of late. It's Ron on the road. I love these visits. Ron, we've got a ludicrous take from Arif Hasan. Ludicrous. Luda. And he's saying that Ivan Pace Jr. is overrated. Your thoughts?
Wow. Okay. I didn't know he said that. I missed that part. I agree with size taking on the lead blocker of a CJ Ham and stuff like that. That's not what Ivan Pace is built to do. But neither was Zach Thomas. And what Ivan Pace brings you is sideline to sideline, big time plays. He's really he was young too, and he was doing a really good job of reading the guards. If you notice a lot of those back end tackles chasing behind running backs, he did a decent job of reading the guards and understanding where the play was going. Is he a Zach Thomas? Hell no. Is he a Pro Bowler? No, not right now.
I was so worried when you said Zach Thomas. I was like, what are we doing?
No, but what I'm saying is like Zach Thomas had to grow into who he became. He had to learn the scheme. I don't think Ivan Pace is ever going to be a hard-nosed middle linebacker. Like I don't think that's his game. His game is going to be he's going to be a scraper. Like he's going to be a guy to get sideline to sideline. He's going to be a guy that cleans up the missed tackles. He's going to be a havoc creator. He's a guy that can play in the A gap and bounce to the C gap really fast and not lose track of who his guy is. But is Blake Cashman a better fit as a true nose middle linebacker, take on the run guy? Yeah. I mean, I agree with that. I don't know if I would say overrated though. I would say he was overcovered maybe in the media in Minnesota media because of how fast he came along and how hungry people were for another Eric Kendricks. I think that was part of it. And then when you look at the other linebackers in the room, he definitely flashed more so than they did. And I think that's why he got so much coverage.
Yeah, I thought he was underrated, Ron. I think, like, nationally speaking, I don't think anybody knows about Ivan Pace Jr. And I think that he plays so much bigger than he actually is. His ability to sift through traffic, to discard blockers, to split through double team blocks. I thought he did that so regularly last year that I can't wait to see his future. But I'm curious, Ron, if you have any other underrated Vikings on this roster that you think maybe don't get the respect they deserve.
Josh Metellus, nationally. I just think nationally they don't, because this whole BS of PFF saying he doesn't line up at safety enough. I think that he's underrated in the fact that you don't have to. Like, that's like telling the NBA now that so-and-so is not a point guard. And they do this because they don't bring the ball up enough. That's stupid. Like, who cares how many times they bring the ball up the court to be considered a point guard? Like, I wouldn't consider Tyrese Halliburton a point guard, but that's his label. Like, I don't want him bringing the ball up the court all the time. Mm-hmm. Is he a decipher and figuring out defenses? Yeah. Does he pass the ball well? Heck yeah. Can he shoot? He can shoot. Is ugly as hell, but he can shoot. But I wouldn't consider him a point guard in like old school point guard NBA. And I think that's the same thing for Josh Metellus. He's probably not a safety in old school thinking, but he's also playing within what Brian Flores needs him to do as that third safety. And that was in the box, that was at nickel, that was at linebacker, and then a couple times that was in the deep fourth or deep third. And so I think he's underrated in that aspect.
Arif, what do you got?
I mean, I already made my case about Ivan Pace. I think that in terms of, again, it really depends. Like when we're talking about Josh Metellus, it really depends on who's doing the overrating, underrating. I don't know. It's tough because we didn't set parameters for like, hey, by Vikings media, by national media, right? So
True.
yeah. So like,
I feel you, Arif. I got you. I feel you.
Yeah. So I think that when we take a look at like players like Josh Metellus and, you know, when they play deep, when they play box, what they're asked to do, I think you can kind of like the fact that Josh Metellus was on the Pro Bowl ballot, earned some Pro Bowl votes. I think that's well deserved. The fact that I think that he's underpaid by the Vikings now after it seemed like he was going to get overpaid. Rules like I think he'll get a new contract. Don't worry about it.
Don't tell him that. Don't let him know.
But I think that it would be difficult for the Vikings defense to have been nearly as good as it was last year for most of the year without what Metellus was able to do, right? And so, yes, maybe as like a deep safety, there's more he could have done. Safety is such a versatile position that it is like I would not have knocked Earl Thomas for not being able to play in the box as well as like Cam Chancellor, right? And I wouldn't have knocked Cam Chancellor for not being able to play up high. Josh Metellus does a lot of stuff. And so the fact that he's not a single high guy doesn't really bother me as much as somebody like an Ivan Pace doesn't do as many things as a traditional linebacker does, because you can deploy safeties in unique ways, in ways that I think with linebackers, you're going to ask them to do a lot more. I think that Josh Metellus is probably underrated nationally. I don't think he's overrated by Vikings fans. I don't think it's like
not Vikings fans.
Yeah. But yeah, I mean, that's like an interesting, you know, setup, right? Where two of these players are best suited for particular roles that doesn't make them a universal player. And one of them I would have liked to have seen a little bit more from, like with Ivan Pace. And one of them I'm totally comfortable with what their limitations and the totality of what they do is with Josh Metellus.
Hey, Ron, let me run this by you. There's a rumor out there, Bill Barnwell, saying that free agent Adori Jackson, cornerback, former first-round pick, would be a fit with the Minnesota Vikings. 4 years with Tennessee, 3 years with the Giants, and struggled quite a bit last year. Did not have a good 2023 season. Do you think the Vikings need more help at the cornerback position, Ron Johnson?
As Mike Zimmer would say, yes. You can never have too many cornerbacks. And I don't think help, like in the aspect of like, I think if they do bring him in and the price fits and they can get him into the cap and, he's willing to come and earn, a new contract with another team, because Minnesota, I don't think would be his landing spot. I think that would be a relaunching pad, I guess, to really show. I would say, yeah, I would get him because he adds a camp body that can potentially push one of these other veterans out the door that maybe he's better than. And we've seen this numerous times that certain guys in certain defenses look great, and then other guys in other defenses don't. Like Xavier Rhodes and Mike Zimmer's defense was one of the best corners in the world. He moves on and he gets forgotten about. So maybe Adori Jackson under the way Flores has it, where I don't need you to cover forever. I just need you to cover well for a short amount of time because I'm trying to get there. Maybe that fits what how he plays. But I remember him out of college. He was really good out of college. They had high hopes for him. I think he did well early on. And then it is one of those things of attrition with corners, though. As you get older and your body starts, like it's just harder and harder to transition, turn, and flip those hips. And, that could be another thing that held him back.
I just want to jump in real quick. I don't think that the Bill Barnwell piece was a rumor. I think it was a suggestion. I just want to point that out. That's an important distinction. He just said it'd be a good idea.
Good clarification.
Not like rumors, oh, this is happening, Steam, or anything like that.
No,
you can kind of take that and run.
No, you're good on that. Braun, any final questions for Ron?
Yeah, Ron, do you have a superstitious Timberwolves related ritual? What are you doing for the game?
Nothing. I have zero. Like I believe in God and I don't believe in like superstitions. And so I've taught myself over the years to not do that, because I will say when I played, I used to think that, like, I used to be like, tape my wrist a certain way. I had to have a certain thing taped on my wrist. I had to have a certain word written on my wrist. Like the way I tape my ankles, I had to do it over and over again the right way. Like it had to be the same tape and so on and so forth. And then as I got older, I realized, like I got to stop doing it. And I even do that. I'm not going to lie. Like I don't care enough to do it for another team. But I got into that, like with my own kid, like I would make sure she had like a acai bowl before every game. And then I realized, like, I'm not paying $12 at Crispin Green anymore for acai bowls because she plays in the game. But I have gone into that before, like in my own sports and my kids' sports. But with the Timberwolves, no. Like I'm excited to watch it. We're gonna do a watch party Sunday with a bunch of people since it's my birthday weekend. So we got my family coming to town and we invited some friends over. So we're gonna do like a cookout / watch the Timberwolves game at our house. But yeah, no traditions. But I will say, whatever I cook Sunday, if all of a sudden they win, I'm probably gonna have that the rest of the tournament or the rest of the.
It's easy. It's funny how it comes up on you. You're gonna, no, I don't have any superstitions, and then suddenly you do.
Yeah. No, I don't.
Wearing the wrong socks.
I know with that, but then I got to do that. I might have to do that again. But no.
If you you might. What if you make the waffles? You got Friday waffles. I know. What if they win on Friday? Then we got to do waffles every Friday.
Oh yeah, true. You're right. Yeah, no, I try, and that's why I don't like superstitions, because then I feel like you become like OCD captive of them. I don't want that. Like, so I do break trends, and then I remind my kid too, like, hey, by the way, you didn't have a bowl today, and you still have 4 hits. So I try to do that too.
Yeah, you're right. Don't be dependent on that. You don't need the rally caps to rally in softball. Yeah. Ron, I know you got to go. We appreciate the time. We'll talk to you on the round table in the morning, where we will break down game 1 Wolves, talk some Vikes, talk some Twins probably, and we'll hang out with Julia Daniels and Reggie Wilson. See you then.
Appreciate you.
Good stuff. At 3, Ron Johnson on X. When we return, there is some new Justin Jefferson scuttlebutt that we can dissect and maybe get a little more into the Adori Jackson stuff. That's coming up next on the Minnesota Football Party. We are brought to you today by Gametime. With killer last-minute deals, all-in prices, views from your seat, and the lowest price guarantee, Gametime takes the guesswork out of buying tickets. NBA tickets, especially right now. You want to get into Target Center? Check out Gametime. You could have gotten in the building for about $200 last night for a Western Conference Finals game. That's not too bad. You can also now get on Gametime and look ahead to future NFL games because we have the schedule, we have the dates, we have the matchups. So September 15th, Vikings home opener. Check out Gametime like I did and get tickets to Vikings 49ers. They've got great last-minute deals at Gametime. Save up to 60% off when you buy last minute for sports, concerts, comedy, theater, and more. I like the zone deals where you choose a section and Gametime chooses the seats. You get the all-in price, the view from your seat, a nice panoramic, and it's really easy to use. Take the guesswork out of buying tickets with Gametime. Download the Gametime app, create an account, use code LOCKEDONNFL for $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply. Again, create an account, redeem code LOCKEDONNFL for $20 off. Download the Gametime app today. Last minute tickets, lowest price guaranteed. Rolling along, Minnesota Football Party. Sam, Arif, Luke. It's part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. There has been some speculation about Justin Jefferson of late. He was at the Wolves game last night, so he's in the state, but he was not at OTAs when it was open to the media. There, of course, is rampant speculation about Justin Jefferson. Most of it's irresponsible. Like somebody got a photo of him in New York that was close to the Jets facility. He's getting traded to the Jets. Oh, my goodness.
He's getting traded to the Jets.
Florio's trying to stir the pot more, saying the Vikings are playing games with the negotiations. We're also hearing about a $34 million number that is expected to set the market. What of it do you believe, if anything? Is there any type of concern about Justin Jefferson, Luke Braun?
Hey, get your bad faith clickbait in while you can. Days are numbered.
Days are numbered.
That's so funny. Like he was spotted in another place. So, okay, if you're not going to be at voluntary OTAs, it's actually pretty normal to go train somewhere, and that somewhere does not necessarily need to be local. I don't know why you would expect it to be local. Go find a trainer that you feel good with and go work out. That's what he did last year. He also did a lot of like endorsements and business and stuff. He was like hanging out in Miami. He did not get traded to the Dolphins. Stop. That's my response. Please, God, stop. This is like we're trying so hard to make news where it isn't. I know it's a dry period. I know it's real boring, but we don't have to make stuff up. He also was like at the Wolves game, so he's back, I guess.
He's getting traded to the Wolves.
Yeah. If you want something real too, on the show with Alec on Locked On Vikings, I asked him and I was like, is there any concern about this? And he said no. And he says that like as reporting, as I talk to people, and no.
Yeah. It's too bad we don't really have precedent for the timeline of a big quasi regime extension. Do we have one?
Well, we have Hawkinson, so we'll see when the ear infection comes in.
And Hawkinson didn't happen until midway through training camp. So my gut is saying, okay, you can end this, Vikings. This has been going on literally for a year. You had last offseason, you had this offseason, like a full calendar year. We've had to deal with this. You can put an end to it. If you're so confident that it's going to happen, make it happen. Arif, Hasan, and I on an earlier show, Braun, you were on your honeymoon. We set the over-under as when this thing gets done. This was prior, I think, to, who was it, Jeremy Fowler's report or Albert Breer saying that there was a July 31st kind of cutoff, like benchmark date. But I said June 10th. I said like the week of mandatory minicamp would make sense because then there's a reason for him to be there. Everybody can celebrate together, big congregation of the media, and it can all be a big party, sending them off into that next month of kind of downtime. What's your over under, Luke Braun?
Well, I hadn't heard about the July 31st thing.
Yeah. So I'll just clear that up. So that was a Arif. Do you remember what I'm referring to?
Nope.
Oh, you don't? Okay. So It was a little bit vague, but I will try to find the tweet.
A
just
signing
search-
bonus policy? Oh,
Yeah.
because of a June 1st thing? So it's from Dan Graziano.
Okay, read it out.
There's a number of reasons to think an extension agreement might take until closer to the season. The Vikings have a policy with their signing bonuses where July 31st. It's kind of a key date, and they might want to wait until after that. That's
Key date. Specific language there.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Because
of how that affects salary cap, I'm sure there's like some weird calendar thing there. Okay, that kind of makes a lot of sense. Sure.
Yeah.
And yeah, for a salary of this magnitude, there's probably some serious trickle down effect. So you want to make sure that your I's are dotted, T's are crossed. The Rick Spielman era always waited until early training camp to do their big extension. So that would be.
Do you remember what my prediction was? Was it training camp? What did I say?
I think we were like eerily close. I think we were very much within a week or 2 weeks in June.
Okay.
Oh, I guess I'll say August 1st then and say that Graziano's right. I don't know. This whole thing has been so annoying. It's been a non-story for a year, and like every other week we have to come on here and address somebody that tried to make a story out of it because they couldn't come up with something else to write about.
34 million. Does that kind of hit your ear correctly? That number makes sense to me. And we've been talking about this.
Is the range.
Yeah,
that's been in my head.
I've been estimating around 35. Amon-Ra St. Brown got 30, right? Something like that.
Yeah. Match Tyreek Hill, yeah.
Yeah, and a lot of Tyreek signed at like 22, right? But it feels like a lot of the Amon-Ra St. Brown contract is not illusory or anything like that. I just think like 30 doesn't really capture it, especially with like, you've got the void years added. Although we might see a little less in the future of teams doing void years because of the way it seems to impact compensatory free agent calculation, something that we just found out with regards to, I believe, the Buffalo Bills and the San Francisco 49ers, who expected third-round picks and got fourth-round picks. And that's because the way that contracts are calculated for compensatory free agency, actually, no, the incentives run the wrong way. I might be wrong. Anyway, here's an interesting fact. The way that the contracts are calculated for free agency is to average over the signed time of the contract without void years. Void years don't matter for that. And so the average for compensatory purposes is actually quite a bit lower if you add void years into the deal. Obviously, that's the whole point of void years. And it has impacted the contract, or it has impacted the compensatory free agent calculation that teams have received when those players have signed with other teams. So actually, the incentive still would be to have void years, but it's like an interesting complication. Anyway, that's what happened with Amon-Ra St. Brown. I am worried that it might impact the Jefferson negotiation, but given how close it seems to be, there's probably not much that's going to change the final number either way.
Braun, did you get caught up in comp pick gate on your honeymoon? I believe that was happening.
I had an eye on things. There's a lot of downtime, so there was some scrolling, I admit. And yeah, so the Shaq Griffin signing maybe not costing or maybe they weren't going to have the comp pick that we thought. Like maybe they never had a way to get 2 third-round picks. So they were free and clear to sign Shaq Griffin. Is that the deal?
Yeah, the analyst who covers it very well said that they blew it. And then the Vikings said, no, we didn't blow it. This is how it was always going to be.
Wait, did they say they come out and they were like, no, we didn't, or was that
no, the Vikings had a rebuttal and they said, no, we're like, this is, it all kind of went according to plan.
Our internal calculation is that Grenard was going to be worth a fourth, not a third, which makes the cancellation situation look a lot different because the order of cancellations goes downwards and then back upwards.
So their second comp pick would have been like a 6th or something, and then like
it would have been a 7th. By that calculation. So it would have been a 3rd and a 7th, and then Shaq Griffin signing knocked down a 4th, and because there were no other 4ths, it like knocked that one down to a 5th. So it got rid of a 7th instead. What's interesting is that the reports during like when the Dallas Turner trade was happening, the reports, the language the reports used indicated that the Vikings believed they were getting multiple compensatory picks, not multiple thirds, multiple compensatory picks. And if the Vikings rebuttal is accurate, it doesn't change the fact that those reports were either worded inaccurately or the Vikings were wrong, because in either case, they only get one compensatory pick next year. So I just find that kind of curious, although it is like almost a nothing if Shaq Griffin knocked out a seventh versus if he had knocked out a third. So it's curious the way that all of this is played out. I haven't paid too much attention to it after like reading, again, Will Raggets is the one who kind of broke it down in a lot of detail with the Nick Corti thread kind of, doing a lot of the legwork. But like, I was talking about something entirely separate with like the Bills and the 49ers expecting different picks because of the way the contract worked out.
Nick Corti, who covers this for Over the Cap, and he's the guy that we get most of our
phenomenal
comp stuff from. Like, he's like the authority on it. And he's holding fast. He's saying like, no, I actually think the Vikings are wrong and that this did cost it. Like, he's holding fast to it. That's super interesting. And
the other reality. Go ahead. Sorry.
And then the other thing worth noting is that he also says that releasing Shaq Griffin before the season won't impact this. Because there's enough guaranteed money where it won't impact this. So don't get that in your head.
So was the conclusion though that based on Grenard's performance, this is not set in stone because Grenard could perform his way into a third round comp?
Right. So the way that Corti does it, which suggests that this might be the way the NFL does it, is that there's essentially a point system, and that contract value plays the most significant role in the point system. Snaps also play a pretty significant role in the point system, but things like Pro Bowl honors play a pretty significant role as well, something like 20-30% of the points. And then there are random penalties, like an age penalty, unless you're a quarterback, right? Like those kinds of things that impact it. What's interesting is that teams can't know, but the way the compensatory system works is that teams should not be able to know the exact details of what the formula is. But what's interesting is that teams find out when their own internal analysts try to, engineer what the formula is, and then they don't get what they expect. They can essentially hold a meeting with the league or file a grievance. I don't really know what the process is, but the league has to explain themselves to those teams when the teams expect to get a third and they get a fourth, or in some cases even a fifth. And so the NFL will explain it without revealing the formula, and that gives us more information on what the formula is. So I would imagine that teams, generally speaking, have a better understanding of the compensatory pick process than Nick does, but Nick is phenomenal at it, and it wouldn't shock me if a team was wrong and he was right,
which has happened before.
Yes. It's just kind of a curious situation, especially because of how much he's kind of held steadfast on this one, given how open he is about like how opaque this process is and how he's been wrong in the past.
And he's like humble. He's like, look, I could always be wrong, but like, there's nothing in my formula that I can't find the way that
I can't point to how that would. Yeah.
We haven't done this bit in a while. Let's end the show with it.
It's time to tell you who spilled their proverbial drink on the sofa. Get ready for this week's party foul.
Luke Braun, you mentioned basket interference in your open.
Yeah.
I wonder
what is that rule? Get out of here.
Offensive goaltending, isn't it? Like, that's what my impression was.
More or less.
Can you do I thought putbacks were like a whole thing, but you have to like wait till it's outside the rim, but if it goes up like 10 feet and it still doesn't count, so what you got to
if the arc is such that there's a good chance it'll go back into the hoop, and I think that's determined by the overhead shot or the percentage of the basketball versus the rim. I don't watch basketball, but that's my guess. Is that
if that's it, then that was a terrible thing. I'm talking about the Karl Anthony Towns put.
No, I know what you're talking about.
For anybody who's listening to this a week later for whatever reason, who's like, what the hell? Not only does that seem, if that's the rule, like that thing was absolutely gonna rim out. But if it's probably. People are talking about like the cylinder of the basket. I don't know, Sam. You watch basketball.
Like they can't themselves make a determination of what's likely. The rule is crafted to capture most cases of what's most likely. So
Oh, well, that rule sucks hard. Party foul. That's terrible.
Okay, yeah, sure.
Yeah,
Sam,
the ball
sorry,
can't.
you know
the
more
ball
than me.
can't be above the cylinder in any way, whether it's a sliver of it, as it was
That's awful.
yesterday,
In any
or
way?
all of it. Yeah, right. The ball cannot be at any
Okay, well that's dumb.
point above the right. Now
That's incredibly stupid. Basketball's dumb.
like
Wolves win.
But if you think about it this way, like clearly, so
Well, and Luke's not even a fan of the Wolves. That's an objective
I
statement.
just objectively hate this. This is giving me the same emotion that like the fumble touchback rule gives me.
Yeah, I was gonna say, what's the NFL equivalent? That's probably it. In this particular case, if they allowed subjective interpretation as to whether the ball was going to go in, then obviously this one wasn't. It was spinning the wrong way. It was going to glance off the front rim and fall off. But if someone
I thought it was something like 50% of the ball had to be in the cylinder. And I was like, that's tough, but you got to have a rule somewhere.
If that's the rule, then it's a bad call. I thought it was.
Well, I don't know. I made it up in my head. I don't know.
Oh, okay.
But
imagine. Crazy. But imagine, like, if the ball was heading toward the rim instead of spinning away, and somebody grabbed it, as it was just beginning to peek over the cylinder. That's what they're trying to prevent.
If only there were a way to distinguish those two situations on replay.
Have a little bit of, like, human instinct. The Wolves didn't have a good experience with replay yesterday.
Yeah, fair enough. My party foul is also basketball related, but actually the WNBA is also related to my opening.
You have 2 minutes. 2 minutes.
Great. Caitlin Clark is fine, whatever. It's fine to have like discourse about Clark, but obviously we're over focusing on it. And in particular, we're over focusing on the nature of her rookie performances, which sucks because she's doing about as well as you'd expect a high level rookie to do. And we're not focusing on Angel Reese and Cameron Brink, who are having phenomenal seasons. Cameron Brink leads the league in block percentage. She is nuts right now. She's killing it. And no one is talking about it. Well, except like her fits before the game. People will tweet out that, which fine. She's very attractive. But like she's so good at basketball and no one is talking about it. It's crazy to me. So that's my party foul. A little bit less focus on Caitlin Clark, which I understand that gets clicks, and a little bit more focus on the fact that the person who clamped her in the Final Four is back, Nika Mule, that Cameron Brink is having a great season, that Angel Reese is having a very good season, that Rakia Jackson, along with Cameron Brink, is having a great season. I don't know. It's like nuts that we're not talking about any of these other rookies in what looks like one of the best rookie classes in a long time. I don't know that much about the WNBA.
So you're saying that on FanDuel that Cameron Brink plus 1,100 is definitely the play.
Do it.
Caitlin Clark is minus 1,000.
That's crazy. So like Caitlin Clark has like a pretty good points per game, somewhere around 20. She has as many turnovers as assists, which again is fine, but it to me is not rookie of the year material to me. That's
if
crazy.
Your team doesn't win a game, also, can you win the rookie of the year? That would be a little unprecedented.
Seems
like it. They're like a sixth of the way there already. Minnesota football party today. We covered a lot of ground, and I think Luke Inman returns next week. We're gonna get the Wings Challenge on the calendar with Luke Braun. We'll get that figured out over text, guys. That's good. That's coming up very soon, so please stay tuned. That's Arif Hasan, Wide Left Substack. Luke Braun, Locked On Vikings. Check it out. And check out Locked On Sports Minnesota's other stuff as well. And please subscribe. Thanks for watching. See you later.